To show you how utterly and completely perverse Schumer and his ilk are, he puts out a press release. Schumer demands Immigration and Customs Enforcement release information about raids. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we are a country of citizens. Somehow in the last 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, whatever it is, if you're an actual citizen, you're a second-class citizen. Our politicians spend more time talking about what we need to do for illegal aliens, rights we need to confer on illegal aliens, benefits we need to confer on illegal aliens, than they do about the American citizenry. Reports that immigration and ICE targeted nonviolent immigrant families over the past week are deeply disturbing. Undocumented immigrants live in fear and they are confused and scared. Well, what are they confused and scared about? You're here illegally. Now, they may be confused and scared if they look at Schumer's face, but why would they be otherwise confused and scared? You're here illegally. I'm troubled by the lack of transparency and potential due process violations surrounding ICE's most recent enforcement actions. That's why I'm calling on ICE to release information about the location of the raids and details of the people who were arrested. ICE is not even permitted to enforce the law. Schumer, ladies and gentlemen, it's time that Jake Tapper, it's time our buddy Chris Wallace, it's time all these people put legitimate questions to Schumer. Are you really saying that the government, that the Trump administration has to release the names and backgrounds and everything else about individuals who are here illegally, who they're deporting? We're not even talking about hundreds of thousands of people. Every raid? Are you really saying that you agree with the Ninth Circuit, the panel, that we are supposed to confer due process rights on people physically in Libya, in Iraq, in Iran, in Yemen, in Syria, and so are you really saying that? Are you saying those people, what should we do? Should we set up courts over there? Are we to bring them in the United States? How else do we confer upon them their due process rights? How else do we adjudicate them? Aren't you also saying that everything is switched? That the benefit of the doubt is on the illegal immigrant or the refugee? That is, that the government of the United States has to prove that they're a criminal, has to prove that they shouldn't be here, has to prove they're a terrorist. Otherwise, they get to come into the United States, despite the fact several of these countries don't have governments or unreliable governments. It's time really to put the truth and reality to what's going on here. On the left, we have absolute insanity. We have riots. We have violence. Did Schumer speak out about what took place in Berkeley? Did Schumer speak out about what took place in New York? Does he ever? The media in this country, the way it mistreated and abused the Tea Party movement, the most civil, gracious, grassroots movement in modern times, versus the vile, violent, poisonous movement on the left that is funded by Soros and other wealthy leftists, that's being promoted by Barack Obama's old organization and Clinton's old organization, which I, by the way, discussed tonight on Levin TV. The coordination that's taking place here between Schumer and the Senate, the donor class among the Democrats, the Obama organizations, the Clinton organizations, these left-wing third-party organizations. Never any discussion about it. Schumer goes on, targeting law-abiding innocent immigrant families. And then it goes, law-abiding innocent immigrant families? So our immigration laws, ladies and gentlemen, are null and void. They're null and void. For some reason, even though they're on the books, for some reason, even though they've never been repealed, our immigration laws are now non-existent. And why is it that reporters in this country, when they have these guys on these Sunday shows and elsewhere, never put it to them on the issue of nullification, which is what sanctuary cities are? Nullification goes back to the pre-Civil War times, the slave states and so forth. Why is nullification in cities run by left-wing Democrats, why is that tolerated if you believe in the rule of law? Why is that tolerated if Barack Obama, as he claimed, has absolute authority and the states and cities have none? That's the argument they made against Arizona. I've said this is the new Confederacy. And California not only talks of nullification with its sanctuary cities, the left is pushing secession. And they're doing more than that. They seek to withhold monies from the federal government. Well, now maybe that fool Governor Brown is asking Washington for money in case that dam breaks again, maybe Washington should say, well, wait a minute. I thought you guys wanted to secede. I thought you guys are nullifying federal law. All of a sudden you want FEMA money. What's that all about? You really think you should have it both ways? And so I really think if there was a concerted effort to properly explain what the left is up to properly put it in context, to say that Chuck Schumer really wants to set up courts, either overseas or use courts in our country, bring people into this country before we know who they are. Because that's what it means to have due process rights. That Chuck Schumer wants to bring them into your communities, on your streets, in your schools, even though the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security says we cannot vet them as well as we need to vet them. And go back to the law and order issue. And go back to the safety issue. I don't know why this is so complicated. I really don't. It's very frustrating to me.